Hi. So today we're going to learn how to build our frame project. So I have started out. Always want to make sure that you have your bill of materials so that you know all of your rough and finished sizes you're cutting to. And then the next thing is after I chose my wood, I need to make sure that I can go through and cut it out to the appropriate rough sizes. Now, one of the things to remember is on some pieces you're going to have to get a plank out of the wood bin, and then on other pieces I'm going to be able to get pieces out of the cubby cabinet right over to our left. So I already have pieces for my top and my bottom rail, so I'm going to set those off to the side because they're already very close to my rough lengths. But I have to go through and still cut the rough lengths of my stiles. So on my bill of materials it says that my stiles have a rough length of 19.5 inches. So I have a mark, 19.5, put a little X on the side of the line that I want. And so my first step in building this is to cut my rough lengths on the radial arm saw. Now that I have cut my rough length on the radial arm saw, I can make sure that you wait for the blade to stop before you move your wood. The excess material I will place back in the wood bin, and then the rest of my material I have to build my frame. So I have a piece that's 19.5 to get my two stiles, and then I have my two pieces to get my top and my bottom rail out of. So now we're going to move to the next step in the scoring process, which is the joiner. And now we're back. We're at the second step of our scoring process, which is the joiner. I made sure that my fence was square to my table by using my tri-square. I made sure that everything was good. Remember, if it is not square, to talk to your teacher and they can help you get it all set up. So we make sure that that's back, and now I am going to make sure when I go through and do this that I am going to joint my edges that already look clean. Stay away from the rough ones, and then we can just keep moving forward. Now that I am all done joining, I want to make sure that I have my edges marked with either a line or an X so that I know that is my good edge. So now I can move over to the next step of the scoring process, which is to rip everything to my finished width on the table saw. Remember, when you go over to the table saw, that your good edge is going to go up against the fence, and then that we will rip our other edge so that it is square and at right angles to our other edge, and also I have a parallel piece of wood. So then I know that everything is going to be square and at right angles. So we're moving on. So now we've made it to the table saw. So now we have to rip all of our pieces of wood to their finished width. Now remember, use your bill of materials, find your finished widths, and then that is what we're going to be cutting everything to. Just a little tidbit of information is when you do this, take care of all of your stiles and top rails first, because they are all the same width when you go through the rip. So I'm going to set it up at 2 1/4 inches. Set my blade up so that I'm safe. Make sure that it's only that 1/8 inch above my material. I have my push stick and I'm all ready to go. Make sure too that you set up so that all of your good edges are all pointing the same direction. Now that you have completed those two cuts, now you want to set it up for your bottom rail. And this is one where people will have a tendency of making mistakes. So make sure that you check your bill of materials. It will tell you 3 3/4. Set your gauge up to 3 3/4 and you can go again. Make sure that you let it come to a stop before you start going after things, reaching over the blade. And so now I have my pieces. I can take the scrap pieces, throw them in the garbage, and then I can take the other pieces that can still be used as cutting boards things and put them back over so that they can be reused. So now we're getting ready to go to our next machine, which is the motorized miter box or chop saw. So now that I have completed all of my ripping on the table saw and I have all of my pieces, my top rail, my bottom rail, and my two stiles all cut to their finished width on the table saw, now we come over to the chop saw, and the very first thing we're going to do is trim an end on all of our pieces and then put a mark on that end so that we know that it was trimmed. Trimmed it, mark it. Take your next piece. And remember, hold the blade down until it stops, trim the piece, mark it so that you know that you're good in. Make sure that you picked up your bill of materials so that you know what all your sizes have to be. Also remember when you're trimming your material that you're only taking about the width of the saw blade off of the wood as you trim it. You don't want to be wasting a whole bunch of wood. So set it up. One of the real enjoyable things about doing these demonstrations for you guys is the fact that I don't have the dust collector on, so I get all the sawdust in my face. But I'm taking one for the team. Now we have to go through and cut our material to its finished length. I have everything marked so that I know what end was trimmed. So now I have to set up my gauge so that I can set up for my measurement. Remember on the measurement gauge that it has the black line, and that is what I am going to set it up to. And so I set it at 17 3/8 because that is the length of our stiles. Snug it up, make sure that you have your safety glasses on, and now I am going to take the end that I trimmed and I am going to butt it up against, nice and gentle, showing the love. Remember to leave Move the blade down until it comes to a stop. Scoot that one over because it's been cut. Trimmed in up against my stop. Now, this is the time that you have to just take a couple of minutes to get yourself set up for the layout, because what we need to do now is we have to cut our top and bottom rail to 9 3/8. But this is where people have a problem and they make mistakes because they're not being patient and taking their time. So I am going to measure from my trimmed end 9 3/8. So I put a mark at 9 3/8, and then, scratch your nose because you got an itch, take a combination square or a tri-square, draw yourself a pencil line where 9 3/8 is, and then I'm going to put an X on the side of my line that I want the blade. I will make sure that right here has a tri-square so that you can use it to draw your line. You got to be patient and take your time on this part. So now that I have that part marked out, now what I need to do is look, a strategically placed C-clamp and block of wood. Gosh, what a coincidence. So I am going to set this up so that I bring this down, look through the little horizontal slots right here, set it up so that you're right on the outside edge of your line. And then I'm going to take it, butt my piece of plywood up against it, and this is a stop block. And so I set my piece of plywood up against, then I'm going to get myself all set up. And then before you tighten it all the way down, just double check, make sure you're right where you want to be. Knock it over a little bit if you need to. Get it all set. I'm all good. Tighten up my C-clamp. And now I'm ready to cut my lengths. Now remember, set up the stop block. My trimmed end is up against my block. And now I can cut my top and bottom rail to length. Trimmed in. Set it up against the fence. Up against your stop block, trimmed in up against once again. And now I have all of my pieces cut to the finished width, cut to the finished length, and now I am all ready to do my layout for my joinery. So we're going to go over to the workbenches to take care of that. Now remember, first, radial arm saw. Rough cut to your rough length. Second, I jointed an edge so that it was square and 90 degree to my face. Third thing that I went and did is then I go over to the table saw, rip it to my finished width so that I get that all done. And then after that, the last step of squaring, so now I am square lengthwise as well, as I come over to the chop saw, motorized miter box, and I go through and I trim one end so that it's square, cut my opposite end to length, and now I am square and at 90 degree and right angles that direction too, lengthwise as well as widthwise. Gonna see you over now for the next part of our job, which is to lay out our parallel lines for dowel joints.